today I'll be covering on what is software testing. Now here we go. What is software testing? So software testing is a process of validating an application whether it meets a specified requirements that is provided by the customer. So here we can find out two kinds of terminologies that is highlighted in blue. One is validation and verifying. What is this validation and what is this verification? So mostly these two may appear to be same terminologies, okay, but there is a difference in this. So when I talk about the verification, it focuses on the process related activities. So this verification is process related activities, since as you know, this testing phases starts with a requirement that we receive from the customer or the client, and later phase is analysis that we will be doing based on the requirement that we receive from the client, and then it comes to designing. After designing, then it goes to the coding. So over here, so what is happening is, it is as I told you, it is a process related activities. Here we ensure that the products and the deliverables are meeting the specified requirements. So basically, since they are in the form of the documents, there would be a testing that they would be analyzing, or there would be a review that would be happening whether the documents are correct or the requirements are correct or not. So how it is done? It is done through some technical reviews, business reviews, and management reviews. Secondly, there is something called a validation. What is this validation all about? Here, this validation is done after the system is available, or after the coding. Once the product is available, then we go for the validation. Or how is this done? What actually is expected? Here we just wanted to find out whether the project that is delivered meets the customer or the client's expectation. How is this done? It is based on the testing. Okay, it is purely on the testing. So what is all about this testing? In short, if I should say, testing is a process of evaluating a software item to detect the differences between the input, whatever the input that we have given from our end, and should matches the expected output. Okay, so that's the short. If I should make it much more easier, let's take an example of a calculator. The calculator, if I give 5 plus 5, the answer expected is 10. Okay, so if the answer is not 10, then you will understand the product is not built properly for an addition. Understood? So here, this is what we do in the software testing. So basically, it is a process of validating and verifying the software application. Okay, so now let me just go ahead. Here there are some different types of testing that has been listed out here. Software testing. Underneath we can find black box and white box testing, and then we can also find unit testing, regression testing, integration testing. These are the different types of testing. So when we talk about this black box unit testing, it comes under the white box testing, and regression, yes, it falls under black box testing, and integration testing. So I just wanted to give an overview on this, but basically we'll be covering now on black box testing as well as the white box testing. Now, if I should talk about this regression testing, just I'm giving you a high level overview, since I don't want to leave you blank. So in regression testing, what is this? This testing is done after once the code is fixed, or if there is any upgradation or any other maintenance work is done. So we would like to check this is not impacting the existing code or the existing system of the application. So here comes this regression testing. Okay. On the integration testing is nothing but once the modules, the application would be developed in the module wise, module A, module B. If I should take a real-time scenario, you can take it up a banking account URL that would say account summary is one module, fund transfer is another module, statement, viewing the statement is another module, credit card could be another module. So each and every module will be developed at its own point of time. So when they are developed and when they are integrated, they would do an integration testing to see whether the system performs properly or not. Okay, so this is an integration testing. Now let's move on to the other one. Our point of black box testing. What is black box testing? if I should talk about this black box testing, it can be any of the software system that you would like to test. So here what happens is the application that we are testing, we will be focusing only on the input and the output of the testing. So which means, in other words, I am not interested to look how it is getting function and what is the code that they have written. For example, let me take the same calculator. So all that I want from the calculator is whatever I enter, a plus b is equal to, this is the value, a minus b is what the value I wanted. So, but I do not go and check out what the coding is written inside the calculator, right? So which means, so if you take even a real-time scenario, a magician, if you see, he will also have everything been covered with a black screen or a black box. So we just know he will put something in a box and there put a flower, and then he takes out a pigeon or a dove. So we do not know what is happening behind that. So that is covered in a black box. So which means, if I should make it shorter, software is tested without looking at the internal code structure. So what is actually our focus is, my focus in the black box testing is, but my testing, my output should be based on the requirement and the specification that is provided by the customer. There's the black box testing. So what is that we do? So how we are going to test, we'll be applying different inputs and compare the output and the expected result. So just like the similar way what I told you in the calculator example. So, and what the black box testing, we also call it another name as a behavioral testing. Okay, so as I told you in the calculator example, the calculator, whatever the function that you are expected and whatever the result that we expect, we have to match the expected result matches the actual result should match the expected result. So this is what the black box testing. We are not concerned, I'm repeating, we are not concerned about any kind of internal code inside this program or the application. Okay, let's move on to the next interesting topic. Here we talk about the white box testing. So what is this white box testing? This is an internal testing. If I should make it another short, black box testing involves testing from an external end user perspective, where the external functionality of the application is tested, whereas in white box it is an internal testing. Mostly this white box testing is done by the developer. Let me just read out over here. Software testing technique is based on analysis of the internal logic. So internal logic is nothing but the design and the code. It is important to note that expected results still come from the requirement. Okay, so here what is happening is the code, whatever the developers have written, is what we are going to test. So you may ask the question, is it very essential that a tester should do a white box testing? And nowadays, companies like Oracle, Google, Yahoo, these companies, they prefer people who can do some white box testing as well. And most of the companies, it is not the tester's duty, but it's the developers who will be working on this white box testing. So under this white box testing, there are two things that we will be testing out here. One is the code coverage and the path testing, which is two kinds of techniques. So I'm just giving you a high level on this. So the code in detail we can see during the time of the course. What is this code coverage? So assume that there are some 100 lines of code have been written, and but what happens is only 80 lines of code is being tested. So which means out of 100, 80 is tested and 20 have not run. Which meaning, so the 20% of the testing or the 20% of the lines, whatever they have written, maybe the module or the GUI might not be ready, so that has been put on hold. So my testing has covered only the 80% of the coverage testing. Okay, I'm just giving you as an overage. So coming back to path testing, what is this path testing? For example, if I take for an example, if x is equal to 50, okay, so if I should say if x is equal to 50 and y is equal to 20, let me just take my notepad and make you understand in a better way. So if x is equal to 50 and y is equal to 30, so I am saying if z is equal to x plus y. Okay, so now I am writing a condition saying if z is greater than 90, okay, then print it is large, or I can say it is greater. Okay, then I am closing this end if condition. So now what is my condition? So now I am saying if z is equal to greater than 90, then you have to print it as greater. Now if I should say, now my condition is this. So what I am doing, how I am going to test it now. So the next condition what I am trying to say is, let's say z value is equal to 30. Okay, so I'm going to finalize all the parts are covered or not. So let's read x is equal to 50, y is equal to 30. Now the condition is z is greater than 90, which means the condition is now it is printing the value is greater. Now if I say the value is equal to less than 30, now I'm making another condition. Okay, so what it should do, it should say print lesser, which means it has to go and check for each and every routine. Okay, each and every path it has to go and check, and it should print out the value is what is expected in the path testing. Okay, this I have given you at a high level on the path testing. So further on this I would be covering during a course and a session with much more example for a better understanding. Now white box testing, it is also called as a structural testing, because since the internal code of the logic is tested, we are also calling this as a structural testing. Now I just wanted to give you a brief difference between this black box and the white box testing. So if you see here, they have put it in a very good box for a better understanding. So here is the functionality. Knowledge of internal structure of test application, whether it is required for white box, yes, it is required. And how about for black box? It's not so required, because we are not bothered about the coding. Now, whose responsibility is this? In white box testing, it is the responsibility of the developers, whereas in black box, it is the responsibility of the software testers. So if I need to have a programming knowledge if I should do a black box testing? It is not required. For white box testing, is obviously he needs some programming knowledge, because only the developer writes the code, and obviously you need to have the programming knowledge. So lastly, the basis for test cases, how that is written? Yes, it is written based on the requirement specification, and for the white box they have designed it from the detailed design. Okay, here there is one question being asked from Mr. Manish Anand. He is asking, let me read out his question. Sir, could you please give me some insight on white box automation? How can one enter into this? Okay, see, white box, if I should say, it is a unit testing that which has been done by the developer, or white box testing is a code that has been written to develop a software or an application. Let's take for example calculator. Okay, so I think there is confusion between this white box and the automation, so I'm just giving a high level description on this. So calculator is an application that is a code is being written where a calculator comes out as an application to us. Okay, so they have put the buttons and they have put the text box where you can enter the value, and the buttons they have put 1 2 3 4 5 6. These are all the layout, and the internal code has been done by the developers. So that is as an application. Now comes the automation. What is this automation? Okay, so what is this automation? Automation is nothing but I want to check some hundreds and thousands of records at a shot to check whether the value or the output generated is proper or not. So how are you going to do that? I do not want any manual intervention since it would take some much more time. So there comes the automation. So we have some automation tools available which are licensed version, and we also have some open source automation tools like Selenium and so on, and QTP we have. So what we do is we just try to automate all our test scenarios or the test cases to run all our conditions to check whether the output is coming or not. Because since we have to test some hundreds and 1000s of data and records, yes, we obviously go for automation. So automation and white box is completely different. Where automation, we will be checking out the conditions and the inputs, whatever we give gives the expected outputs with much minimal manual intervention. So did I answer your question, Manish? Before I wind up, without having manual testing, knowledge on manual testing, automation testing is quite tough. So basically, we need to understand the basics of the manual testing, and then you can proceed further for the automation testing. Okay, now comes the code coverage. There is one more question. I think Manish Anand. Yes, thank you so much. Now, second question being raised by Amit Agarwal is asking, code coverage testing and path testing seems to be similar. Is that so? No. See, code coverage and path testing are different. So here in the code coverage, let's say, for example, if you don't mind, I'll just open up one of my sheet to make you understand better. So for example, here I have a flowchart of an application of a banking software. Okay, these are all in module wise. So for example, we have a customer details, we have an account details, we have balance inquiry, which comes this side, and statement. And on the other hand, we have fund transfer and minimum statement. Okay, so now what happens is, maybe based on the requirement specification, I have written all my test cases for all these modules. Okay, but now when the testing has come for testing, what happens is the code is available only for customer detail, account details, and balance inquiry and custom statement. But whereas the code is not ready for the fund transfer and minimum statement. Okay, so what I am doing is trying to do is, when I do a testing, so I would be testing only for this particular part, and the coverage on this particular functions or the modules will not be run or executed. The reason behind that is because the lines of code are not ready, or the layout is not ready, or the function is not ready. So that is why I said, perhaps if there are hundreds of lines of code have been written, only 80% of the code is been generated or written, and the remaining 20% will be executed only when this module is ready. So that is the code coverage. So whereas when it comes to path testing, if I should take for balance inquiry, okay, if I should take for a balance inquiry, there, let me give you one or two conditions. If the customer has got a sufficient balance, yes, he can withdraw the amount. If the customer has got an insufficient balance, he cannot withdraw the amount. Okay, I'm talking about the path testing. So in the path testing, what happens, you are checking for each and every loop conditions or the statements in that particular coding. Okay, the coding will have several kinds of loops. For example, if condition, for condition, and so on. So here you will be taking out whether it is passing out the yes or no conditions. If it is yes, what it should do. If it is no, what it should do, is what path testing. So code coverage and path testing are completely different. Amit, did I answer your question? Thank you, Amit. Thank you so much. Okay, there is one more question from Samuel. What he's asking is, can we say white box testing is verification and black box testing is validation? No. See, white box testing, as I said earlier, white box testing is a code. Actually, it is an internal design or a code that is being written, okay, to develop a software. Okay, so let me, as I told you earlier, calculator. If you see the external part of that, you can see a layout and a design. Okay, where you're trying to do some validation. So where is this verification comes? the calculator would have not come as a product in your hands, whereas the customer would have given you a document, and then you will be writing out some of your scenarios and test cases, and you will be conducting some reviews. So if this is the logic, if this is the function, what should happen? What should happen? It will be on a process. It will be on the document. Okay. So which means it is completely based on the process related. But whereas when it comes to validation, validation is a product which comes in your hand. Okay. So there you will be doing a functional kind of testing, putting some inputs and outputs. So don't confuse with this white box testing. It is just an internal code and a design that has been developed by the developers. How about careers in automation compared to manual testing? It's a good question. See, without having a knowledge on manual testing, you will not be able to go for automation testing. Okay, so which means, so manual testing, yes, obviously is the principle. It's the basic that you need to have on the manual testing. What is manual testing? What are the techniques that you'll be using? How are you going to write your test cases, and so on? Okay, so these are the things that you'll be understanding in the manual testing. So what is that in automation testing? If you want to go in for an automation testing, I would suggest, if you can have some kinds of programming knowledge, yes, that would be an added advantage for you to get into your automation testing. So automation testing, yes, obviously it has got its own market, and yes, it has also got a greenery and a red carpet welcome for people who would like to get in for the automation testing. But at the same time, there is also an equal opportunity for the people who are in the manual testing. Yes, Samuel is asking, black box testing is a testing functional peering into its internal structure, while white box testing is testing the software internal structure. No. So the small correction, Samuel. Black box testing is a testing peering into its external structure, while white box testing is a testing of the software in the internal structure. So black box is basically on the internal, and this is on the internal aspect. So let me just go ahead. Here, now I would be covering up some techniques on, we saw the difference between the black box and the white box testing.